It was 2:43 a.m. when my phone buzzed on the nightstand, the screen casting a cold blue glow across the dark room. I blinked at the message, trying to focus through the haze of exhaustion and champagne. "Come home now. Your sister needs you." It was from my mother. No context, no greeting. Just the same tone I'd heard my whole life, the kind that assumed I would drop everything the moment they called. And for 27 years, I always did. But tonight was supposed to be different. Just a few hours earlier, I'd been standing in the rooftop bar of the Viridian in downtown Seattle, surrounded by my new team, toasting the biggest moment of my life, being named executive brand strategist for one of the top creative firms on the West Coast. My best friend Claire had poured me another glass of Prosecco, laughing, "Don't let them steal this from you, Lorna. You earned every damn inch of it." I wanted to believe her, I really did, but now that one-line message sat on my screen like a loaded gun, silent, cold, and familiar in the worst possible way. My hands trembled as I stared at it, not from fear but from something far more corrosive. A lifetime of built-up resignation, the kind that grows quietly in the hearts of daughters who were never allowed to choose themselves first. I could already hear the excuses. It was probably another one of Elise's breakdowns, her lease running out, a boyfriend leaving, or maybe she didn't get the job she wanted. And somehow it would be my problem to fix. Again. The bartender asked if we needed anything else. I shook my head and tucked the phone into my clutch, trying to suppress the tight knot forming in my chest. But I already knew what was coming next. The calls, the guilt, the quiet insinuation that if I didn't come home, I wasn't just failing my sister. I was betraying the entire family. What no one realized was that something inside me had shifted. It had been shifting for years, quietly, like tectonic plates beneath the surface. Tonight it finally cracked. And while they still saw me as the dutiful daughter, always available, always agreeable, they had no idea that I had already started packing. They didn't know that, while Elise cried over her messes, I had signed a lease across the country, that my one-way ticket was booked, and that the last thing I'd be leaving behind would be a letter they would never forget. Because this time, I wasn't coming back. As I stared at the message from my mother that night, everything in me wanted to believe it was just another overreaction, a momentary panic that would pass by sunrise. But deep down, I already knew exactly what this was. It was a replay of every other time my sister Elise needed something, and I was expected to drop everything to clean up the mess. You see, in my family, there were two daughters, Elise, the fragile one, and me, Lorna, the capable one. Elise had always been the center of attention, the one with the soft voice, the big emotions, and the infinite second chances. From the time we were kids in Madison, Wisconsin, it was clear. Elise was the one who needed help, and I was the one who gave it. When Elise flunked her freshman year of college because she wasn't emotionally ready, my parents covered the tuition again without blinking, while I held down 3 part-time jobs just to stay afloat. When she crashed the family car after texting through a red light, they bought her a newer one because she needed to feel safe. Meanwhile, I had to beg my way into a loan to buy a used Honda with no air conditioning. They said they loved us equally, but love doesn't always show up equally. And I learned early that in my family, the louder you cried, the more you were heard. I remember a winter break during my junior year, when I had finally saved enough to take a weekend off from work and visit a friend in Chicago. I'd barely stepped off the bus when my mom called in tears. Elise had broken up with her boyfriend and she needed her sister. I cancelled the trip, took the next bus home, and spent 2 days comforting Elise while she sobbed on my lap and refused to eat. No one thanked me. No one even asked how I was doing. They just expected it because I was the strong one. That label, the strong one, sounds flattering until you realize it's just an excuse for people to lean on you endlessly without ever asking what you need. It meant I was constantly rearranging my life to hold together theirs, and if I ever paused or pushed back, I was labelled ungrateful, selfish, or worse, difficult. The irony is, my parents always told me they were proud of how independent I was, yet they never let me actually be independent. Not when Elise was struggling, not when she needed someone to do her taxes, or drive her to job interviews, or talk her through panic attacks at 2 a.m. And heaven forbid she had to fill out a lease application alone. I once had to leave work early to help her because she forgot how to do it. And Mom didn't want her to feel overwhelmed. They never admitted it outright, but their expectations were clear. Elise would be supported, protected, and understood. I would be useful. So when I finally told my mother, on that call from the bar, that I wouldn't be coming home, that I had accepted a position in Seattle and would be starting my new job in 3 weeks, her silence cut sharper than any words could. For a moment, I thought she hadn't heard me. But then she spoke, and her voice was as cold as the wind off Lake Mendota in January. "You're choosing a job over your family," she said. I tried to explain that this wasn't just a job. It was a career I had fought tooth and nail to build. A chance to finally have a life of my own, far away from the constant demands and emotional chaos that had consumed me for over 2 decades. But she wasn't listening. She never really listened unless it involved Elise. "There are plenty of marketing jobs in Madison," she insisted. "Family comes first, Lorna. It always has." That was when I realized she wasn't asking. She was warning. "Either you come home and help your sister," she said, "or you can consider yourself no longer part of this family." It was surreal. The way she said it so calmly, as if severing ties with her oldest daughter was no more serious than cancelling a dinner reservation. I felt like I had just been exiled for daring to choose myself. And yet, beneath the shock, there was also a strange sense of clarity. For years, I had blamed Elise for being needy, but the truth was, she had only learned to survive the way she was taught, by expecting others to fix everything. It was my parents who had created the imbalance, who had fed her dependence while ignoring the toll it took on me. Still, I didn't lash out. I didn't raise my voice or defend my worth. I simply said, "I'll think about it," and ended the call. But I had already made up my mind. Claire watched me closely as I set the phone down and took another sip of now flat champagne. I could see the worry in her eyes, the quiet recognition of a pattern she'd watched me repeat for years. "You know what you have to do," she said, her voice steady. And I did. That night, while the rest of the city slept, I pulled out my laptop, opened a blank document, and began writing the letter that would change everything. A letter to the people I loved, who had so rarely loved me in the way I needed. A letter that would not be cruel, but honest. A mirror they would be forced to look into once I was gone. The truth was, I had spent my entire life setting myself on fire to keep everyone else warm. And now all that remained was ash. I sat in that dimly lit bar, the fizz of my untouched Prosecco slowly going flat, while Claire kept her hand over mine, gently reminding me that I didn't owe anyone a rescue mission anymore, not even my own family. And yet, even with her support, I could feel the old instinct rising like muscle memory, the urge to fix, to smooth over, to sacrifice. I had been trained well. My thumb hovered over the call button for longer than I care to admit, torn between the life I had finally started building and the chains that still rattled from home. Eventually I gave in. Not because I wanted to, but because I knew silence would only make things worse. When my mother answered, her voice was tight with judgment, not concern. "Where have you been?" she demanded, as if it was reasonable to expect a full-grown woman to answer midnight summons without question. "Elise might lose her job. Her company is cutting staff and she's on the list. She's devastated." I pressed my fingers to my forehead, trying to stay calm. "Mom, it's the middle of the night. What exactly do you expect me to do about that from here?" "You need to come home," she said, as if it were the most obvious solution. "Help her job hunt. She's overwhelmed with her lease ending next month, and you know how she struggles with paperwork." I inhaled slowly, counting backward from 5 the way my therapist once taught me, though I had never had the chance to practice it in real life until now. "I can't," I said, with a steadiness that surprised even me. "I just accepted a new position here in Seattle. I start in 3 weeks." There was silence, the kind that stretched out like an invisible wall between us, thick with disapproval and disbelief. When she finally responded, her tone was colder than I had ever heard it. "You're choosing a job over your family?" I wanted to scream, to shout that it wasn't just a job, that it was the culmination of 10 years of hustling, of unpaid internships and rejection letters, and late nights at community college while Elise took gap years and found herself on our parents' dime. But I stayed composed. "It's not a job, Mom. It's a career. My future." "You always put yourself first," she snapped. "But your sister needs you. Family comes first, Lorna. Always has. There are plenty of marketing jobs in Madison. You could easily find something local." Across the table, Claire gave me a wide-eyed shake of her head, silently urging me not to cave, but even as I clung to my composure, I could feel the familiar guilt creeping in, slithering under my skin like a slow poison. "No, Mom," I said quietly. "I'm not coming back. Not this time." The line went dead silent again before her voice returned, sharp and unforgiving. "Then you leave me no choice. Either you come home and help your sister, or you are no longer a part of this family." It landed like a punch to the chest, not because I believed it, but because I knew she did. My own mother was giving me an ultimatum, as if my loyalty had an expiration date, as if 2 decades of sacrifice could be undone with one decision to put myself first. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Are you seriously disowning me over this?" "I'm being realistic," she replied. "Your father and I helped you through school, gave you a roof when you needed one, and now you repay us by turning your back when your sister is falling apart." I wanted to remind her that I had paid every penny back, that I had worked double shifts during school breaks while Elise used their credit cards to fund shopping trips and spa weekends. I wanted to scream that I had missed my own graduation ceremony because Elise had a panic attack over a breakup, and Mom insisted I come home to be with the family. But instead, I said the only thing I could without unraveling completely. "I'll think about it," I whispered, and I ended the call. Claire's hand reached across the table again, squeezing mine with quiet understanding. "You know what you have to do, don't you?" I nodded slowly, the decision no longer just a thought but a living thing taking root in my chest. "I'm not going back," I said, more to myself than her, "but I'm also not going to fight. I'm done arguing." Claire tilted her head, confused. "What do you mean?" I reached into my bag and pulled out my laptop. The champagne sat forgotten as I opened my booking app and clicked through flights. "I'm buying a one-way ticket to Seattle, tomorrow. No arguments, no dramatic goodbyes, just gone." Claire exhaled slowly. "Holy, Lorna, you're really doing it." "Watch me." My fingers flew over the keyboard, muscle memory kicking in from the dozens of trips I had planned for other people but never for myself. I booked the flight, confirmed the hotel for the first few nights before my lease began, and shut the screen with a quiet finality. 27 years of being the fixer, the one who answered every call, the one who made herself small so others could shine, that ended tonight. Just as I powered down, my phone buzzed again. A text from Elise. "Lorna, please come home. I don't know what I'll do without you." I stared at the words for a long time, but I didn't reply. Not this time. Instead, I opened a blank document, placed my hands on the keyboard, and began typing the letter that would finally say everything I had swallowed for far too long. "Dear Mom, Dad, and Elise." The words flowed faster than I expected, like they had been waiting for this moment all along. There would be no yelling, no begging, no scenes, just truth. 3 pages of it. When the sun finally began to peek through the blinds, I printed the letter, folded it neatly, and sealed it in an envelope. Claire, who had stayed up with me the entire night without complaint, took it from my hands with care. "Read it," I told her, my voice unsteady. "Tell me if it's too much." She read it silently at first, then aloud, her voice thick with emotion. When she finished, she looked up at me with tears in her eyes and said, "It's exactly enough." I nodded and went to zip my suitcase. Everything I needed was packed. The rest, my childhood memorabilia, Elise's hand-me-downs, the framed photo of us from years ago, could be shipped later or left behind. I didn't need them anymore. By the time Claire dropped me off a block from my parents' house, the sky had turned a soft blue, the early morning light brushing the quiet street like a secret being whispered. I walked the last stretch alone, the envelope in my hand, the final piece of my old life clutched tight. I slipped through the back door, placed the letter on the kitchen counter next to my mother's favourite mug, and lingered for just a moment. One last breath, one last goodbye. My phone buzzed again. "Elise, one more time." "Mom's really upset. Why aren't you answering?" I turned it off without reading further and stepped back into the pre-dawn stillness where Claire was waiting. "I called the Uber," she said, hugging me tightly. "You okay?" I looked down the quiet street that had once felt like home and then up at the open sky above me. "Yeah," I said. "I think I finally am." The first morning I woke up in my tiny Seattle studio, there was a moment, a fragile, quiet breath, where I forgot the weight of everything I had left behind. The air felt different, not because the city smelled better or the mattress was softer, but because for the first time in years, the air was mine. I wasn't waking up to anyone's expectations. I wasn't on call for emotional emergencies, and I didn't have to brace myself for guilt-laced voicemails. It was just me and the low hum of the city rising outside my window. The apartment itself was modest. Barely enough space for a full bed, a desk, and a kitchenette, but every square inch had been chosen by me, paid for with my own money, and arranged without compromise. There was no pastel throw blanket Elise insisted I take, no framed family portraits on the wall, and certainly no lingering scent of my mother's perfume reminding me of everything I owed. Instead, the shelves held my books, the fridge carried food I liked, and the silence. The silence was sacred. I spent the first few weeks settling in, not just into the space, but into the reality of having drawn a line I could no longer cross back over. The messages started trickling in almost immediately. Voicemails from my mother, each one more curt than the last, accusing me of abandonment. Elise's texts ranged from desperate pleas for support to passive-aggressive guilt trips disguised as affection. Even my father, usually the quiet observer, chimed in with a vaguely worded email about how family was meant to stay close, not scatter. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I poured myself into work. The firm was fast-paced, competitive, and unlike anything I had ever known. And it was exactly what I needed. My new boss, Martin Delgado, was sharp, intuitive, and surprisingly empathetic. He didn't pry into my personal life, but he noticed the way my phone buzzed endlessly during meetings, the way I flinched each time I saw a familiar name flash across the screen. One afternoon, after a particularly impressive pitch I delivered for a skincare campaign, he pulled me aside in his glass-walled office overlooking the Sound. "You're doing incredible work," he said, sliding a folder toward me, "but you're somewhere else half the time. Whatever that is, handle it, because you're ready for more." Inside the folder was our next big pitch, Pinnacle Outdoor, a legacy brand looking to rebrand for the next generation. Leading the pitch would mean working directly with their executives, traveling to client meetings, and, for the first time, owning something from start to finish. It was more than a vote of confidence. It was the beginning of something real. But while I was building something new, the past refused to stay quiet. One morning, after back-to-back brainstorming sessions and barely enough sleep, I finally turned my phone on just to clear the notifications. The first voicemail was from Elise. Her voice, once syrupy and pleading, now cracked with exhaustion. "Lorna, please, I lost the job. They said I missed too many deadlines, and now Mom's making me move back home. I don't know what to do." I paused, my finger hovering over the delete button, my heart pounding, not from sadness, but from the anger that still simmered beneath everything. The second message came from my mother, her voice sharp and accusatory. "Your sister is falling apart, and you're off playing career woman. That letter? Cruel, cold, completely unnecessary." I deleted both messages without hesitation. Just then, Claire's name lit up my screen. I answered, already bracing myself. "She showed up at my apartment," Claire said without greeting. "Mascara everywhere, carrying a suitcase that looked like it cost more than my car. She's looking for you." My stomach tightened. "Elise came to Seattle?" "She says she just wants to talk. She's a mess, Lorna. She's saying she's having panic attacks. I thought you should know." I sank into the nearest chair, gripping the edge of the desk as my pulse pounded in my ears. "She doesn't want to talk," I said slowly. "She wants access. She wants me to step back in and fix it again." Claire hesitated. "Maybe." But she seemed genuinely lost. I closed my eyes for a beat before responding. "Claire, she got fired because she kept calling in sick after bad dates. She spent more time on social media than on her actual work. And she expects the world to bend every time she falls apart because it always has. But not anymore. I'm done being the fallback plan." Just as I hung up, Martin appeared at my office door. He didn't ask what the call was about. He didn't have to. "If you need to take time," he said gently, "the team can cover for you." "No," I said, standing straighter. "This pitch matters. I'm not backing away from it." He studied me for a moment, then handed me a revised schedule. "Success," he said, "is the best boundary you can draw. Make sure they see it." I nodded and returned to my desk where the documents for the Pinnacle presentation lay waiting. I poured myself into every detail, messaging, visuals, strategy, until the buzz of my phone became background noise, until the guilt that had once anchored me felt distant and dull. They wanted me to drown in their chaos, but I was learning how to swim towards something else. The Pinnacle pitch was a resounding success. The clients were enthusiastic, Martin was thrilled, and for the first time in years, I allowed myself a moment to breathe. Not the kind of shallow survival breath I had grown used to, but the deep grounding inhale of someone finally standing in a space she had carved out entirely on her own. Yet that calm was fleeting, shattered the moment Claire called, her voice tight with nerves. "Lorna, your mum showed up at my office today." I stopped in my tracks, the sounds of the city blurring around me as I crossed Pine Street. "What do you mean she showed up?" "She's desperate. She's trying to get your address. She looked tired, frazzled, nothing like how I remember her." I leaned against a storefront window, trying to steady my pulse. Did she say what she wanted? She rambled for a bit about Elise spiraling, about how the family's falling apart. She said your dad's business is in trouble, that they can't support Elise anymore. The news sank like a stone in my chest, not because it surprised me, but because I knew what it meant. For the first time, my parents were being forced to confront the world without a built-in safety net. Without me. "And there's more," Claire added. "Elise totaled her car last week. She was texting and driving. No one was hurt, just her pride, and your dad's credit card. But get this, your parents refused to buy her a new one." I blinked, stunned. "Wait, they said no? They actually told her no?" "Apparently your dad said they couldn't afford it. Between the business and Elise moving back home, they're stretched too thin." My phone buzzed just then. Another incoming call from my mother. I hesitated only briefly before answering, my voice calm but guarded. "Hello?" She didn't waste time. "Lorna, we need to talk about what you've done to this family." I exhaled slowly, staring up at the overcast sky. "What I've done?" "You abandoned your sister when she needed you most. She's had to move back home, she can't find a job, she's having anxiety attacks. Is that what you wanted?" "What I wanted," I said evenly, was to live my life without being Elise's emergency contact for the rest of it. She's your daughter, but I'm your daughter too. You've never once asked how I was doing, not when I was working 2 jobs through college, not when I missed my own graduation to take her shopping after a meltdown, and certainly not when I said I couldn't come home. There was silence on the line, and when my mother finally spoke again, her voice had lost some of its sharpness. We need you to come home, just for a little while. Help her get back on her feet. I started walking again, faster now, my footsteps echoing through the narrow corridor between buildings. No, Mom, I'm not coming home. Lorna, please, your father's business is crumbling. We can't support her like we used to. And now that you can't rescue her, I said, the bitterness barely restrained, you want me to. Again. I'm not your backup plan. Her voice cracked. You're being selfish. No, I replied, stopping in front of my apartment building. I'm being successful. I just landed the biggest client of my career. I have a job I love, a home I built for myself, and for the first time, I'm not living under the weight of someone else's chaos. Another long pause, then a voice I hadn't heard in months, soft, tentative, familiar. Princess? I froze. Dad? His voice was thinner than I remembered, with an unfamiliar rasp. We miss you. The words hit harder than I expected, the sudden softness unraveling something inside me. Dad, why are you calling me Princess now? After all this? Because I should have said it more. I should have said a lot of things. I should have stood up when your mother pushed too hard, should have told Elise no a long time ago, should have told you how proud I was. Then why didn't you? My voice trembled, not with anger, but with grief. Because it was easier, he admitted. Easier not to fight, easier to let it be. But I see what it's done. You've been carrying us all, and it's not fair. Elise needs to grow up. We see that now, but she doesn't know how, because we never made her. My fingers gripped the phone tighter as I reached my building's door. Do you need me to come back? No, he said firmly. That's not why I called. I didn't want you dropping everything again. We're managing, or at least trying. Elise is trying too. I wanted to say I'm proud of you, for walking away, for making something of yourself. I should have said it years ago. Tears welled unexpectedly. I stood there for a long moment, letting the weight of those words settle in my chest. Thanks, Dad. When I hung up, I sat on the stoop outside my building, staring at the streetlights blinking on one by one. The guilt, once heavy and suffocating, felt suddenly lighter, like it belonged to someone else now. I didn't need their approval to move forward, but hearing it, even this late, was like finally releasing a breath I didn't know I had been holding for years. A message from Elise came in just then. Everyone's mad at me. It's your fault. I hate you. I didn't react. Not right away. A few minutes later, another message arrived. I'm sorry. I don't hate you. I just don't know how to do this without you. I stared at the screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard. I started typing, deleted it, then tried again. Finally, I sent one short sentence. You'll figure it out. You're stronger than you think. Then I turned off my phone and climbed the stairs to my apartment, where the Pinnacle contract sat on my desk, waiting for my signature. Next to it was a framed photo Claire had taken the night I left Madison. Me, smiling through uncertainty, flushed with champagne and possibility. That woman had been terrified, but she had done it anyway. And now she deserved my full attention. It was a Tuesday night when the knock came, sharp, hurried, and entirely unexpected. I wasn't expecting anyone, and something in the rhythm of it told me it wasn't friendly. I glanced through the peephole and the breath caught in my chest. Elise. She stood there on the hallway carpet, clutching a designer suitcase far too expensive for someone claiming to be broke, her makeup smeared, her hair messy, her eyes swollen and red. She looked tired in a way that went beyond sleep deprivation, the kind of tired that comes from running out of excuses and finally hitting a wall. I know you're in there, she called through the door. "Your lights are on." For a brief moment, I considered pretending I wasn't home, but I knew that would only delay the inevitable. So I took a deep breath, unlocked the door, and stepped aside. She swept past me without asking for permission, the suitcase thudding onto the floor like punctuation. "Nice place," she said, looking around at my modest apartment. "Kind of small, though." I didn't respond. I crossed my arms and waited. She exhaled sharply, dropping onto my couch as though she owned it. "Mom and Dad are being impossible. They've frozen my cards, cancelled the streaming subscriptions, and Dad, he actually told me to apply for a job at a coffee shop. A barista. Me dot. Elise," I said evenly, "why are you here?" She looked up, her expression caught between defiance and desperation. I thought, maybe I could stay here for a little while, just until things calm down. I shook my head, not unkindly, but firmly. "No." Her mouth fell open. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, you can't stay here." Her voice rose, incredulous. "We're sisters." "Exactly, which is why I'm saying no." She blinked, confused. "I don't understand." "That's the problem," I said, staying where I was, not moving to comfort her. "You never have." She looked genuinely stunned, as if the reality of boundaries was a foreign language. I sat down across from her, putting space between us. "This is what you do, Elise. You show up in the middle of a disaster you created, expecting someone else to clean it up. You don't ask. You assume. You did it at Mom's, at Dad's, and now here. That's not fair." "Not fair?" I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady. "Do you remember my college graduation? The one I didn't attend because you had a meltdown about a dress your boyfriend didn't like, and Mom insisted I take you shopping instead. I was young. You were 19. I worked 2 jobs to get that degree, and I didn't even get to walk across the stage. You never even said thank you." She looked away, blinking rapidly. "Do you know where I was the night Mom called me to come home this time?" I asked. "I was at a bar celebrating the biggest opportunity of my life, a job I had fought tooth and nail to get. And she wanted me to throw it all away because you might lose a job you didn't even want." "I didn't ask her to do that," she whispered. "No, Elise," I said softly. "You never ask. You just fall apart and wait for the rescue." She stood suddenly and began pacing, her energy manic and unbalanced. "So what am I supposed to do now? Go back home, take some minimum wage job and live in the guest room like a teenager?" "You're supposed to grow up," I said simply. "You're supposed to take responsibility, work hard, earn your own money, and stop expecting the world to rearrange itself every time something doesn't go your way." "That's easy for you to say," she snapped. "You're the responsible one, the perfect one." "No," I said, standing now. "I became that because I had to. Because someone had to hold it together when you fell apart, and our parents didn't know how to say no to you. Do you think I wanted to miss parties, relationships, rest? I didn't get to be carefree, Elise. I was too busy being your net." She froze, her face pale, the air between us crackling with the weight of truth. "I didn't realize. Number you didn't. Because you never had to." My phone buzzed. Martin, texting about the morning client brief. I looked at it, then back at Elise. "I have work tomorrow. You need to leave." She stared at me, her lower lip trembling. "You're being cold." "I'm being honest," I said. "You can stay in a hotel tonight if you have nowhere else to go. But not here." She grabbed her suitcase, dragging it toward the door. Her voice cracked as she turned to face me. "I thought you loved me." "I do," I said, soft but firm. "Which is why I'm not enabling you anymore." She hesitated, the pain raw in her eyes. "What if I fail?" "Then you fail," I said. "And you learn. And you get up again. That's what adults do." When the door finally shut behind her, the silence that followed wasn't hollow. It was peaceful. My phone buzzed again, this time from Claire. "Did she show up?" "Yeah," I typed back. "I sent her away. Feel like a monster." "You're not a monster," she replied. "You're teaching her the lesson your parents never did." I looked around at my small apartment. Nothing glamorous, but wholly mine. The couch was second-hand, the walls still a little bare, but the peace in the space was something I had fought for. My phone buzzed again. Mom. I turned it off. Tomorrow I had a campaign to lead. Elise would figure things out, and if she didn't, she would learn to try. Maybe that was the most loving thing I could offer her, space to fall and the dignity to rise on her own. 2 months passed after Elise showed up at my apartment, and while I hadn't heard much directly from her, Claire's weekly updates became a surprising window into a version of my sister I'd never expected to meet. "Lorna," she said one Thursday morning as we sipped coffee over the phone, "you're not going to believe this. Elise got a job." I nearly dropped my cup. "What kind of job?" "Receptionist at a dental office. She's been showing up, on time, for 3 weeks straight." I leaned against my kitchen counter, caught between disbelief and cautious hope. "She's working." "She was wearing scrubs," Claire said, chuckling, and she actually looked proud of herself. That same afternoon, as if on cue, Martin called me into his office, his expression more serious than usual. "Close the door," he said. "I've got something big." I sat, already bracing for a client emergency, but what he slid across the desk wasn't a complaint. It was a contract. "Pinnacle wants us to lead their European expansion. 3 months in Paris. You'd be heading the team." The words hung in the air like an open door to a life I never believed I'd be invited to live. I was about to say yes when my phone buzzed, a message from Dad. "Please call. Emergency." My heart sank. "Can I have an hour?" I asked Martin. Outside his office, I called my father. "Princess," he answered, and for the second time in months that word didn't sting. "I had a heart attack yesterday." The air shifted. "Why didn't anyone call me sooner?" "I wanted to talk to you myself. It was mild. I'm okay. But the business, it's in rough shape. And Elise? Well, you won't believe it." He paused to catch his breath. "She's been helping, learning the basics, handling paperwork. She even told me she wants to try running things while I recover." I sat down hard on a bench, the weight of it all pressing against my spine. "Elise, really?" "She's changed, Lorna. Losing you forced us all to take a hard look at ourselves. Your mother's still adjusting, but she's trying. And Elise, she's doing what we should have taught her to do years ago." "Do you need me to come home?" "No," he said firmly. "That's why I waited. We're managing. Elise insisted she handle it. Said it was time she took responsibility." Tears welled unexpectedly. "Dad, no, let me finish. We failed you, Lorna. For years we leaned on you without thinking about the toll. But you leaving, it saved us. It saved Elise." Martin appeared in the hallway checking his watch, but I held up a hand. "I have to go, but I'll call tonight." Back inside, Martin looked at me carefully. "If your dad needs you, Paris can wait." I shook my head slowly. "Number, he doesn't need me. Elise is handling it, and for the first time, I believe she can." His face softened. "Then pack your bags." That evening, I called Claire to tell her about Paris, and she screamed so loudly I had to pull the phone away from my ear. Then her voice softened. "Your mom called me," she said. I tensed. What did she want? "She wanted me to tell you she's sorry. She's been seeing a therapist, working on control issues." I didn't respond right away. "People can change, Lorna," Claire added. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I think I'm starting to believe that." A few days later, I got another message from Elise. "Heard about Paris. Congratulations. I mean it." It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. An acknowledgement, maybe even the start of a bridge. Paris was everything I hoped it would be. Challenging, beautiful, exhausting, exhilarating. But 6 weeks into the campaign, another call came. Dad's second heart attack brought me home. I arrived outside the hospital room expecting chaos, but what I found stunned me. Elise, in business slacks, laptop open, coordinating with insurance and the doctors, her hair tied back in a bun that made her look older, more focused. "You look tired," I said softly. "Tuesday was the last time I slept," she replied, not looking up. "I'm trying to manage the business and coordinate care. Mom's not coping well." "Where is she?" "Cafeteria, stress baking. The nurses are tired of muffins." I sat beside Elise. "How bad is it?" "Triple bypass. I'm trying to figure out the deductible. We're short." "I can help," I offered. "No," she said quickly. "You've got Paris. I've got this. I'm not helpless anymore." She showed me spreadsheets. Actual financial restructuring plans. Just then, Mom walked in with a basket of muffins, her eyes wide when she saw me. "Lorna, you're here." "Of course I'm here." She hugged me awkwardly. "I didn't think, with your important job." "It's Dad," I said simply. When the surgeon came in to explain the procedure, Elise took notes, and I watched them. Mom, quieter and more present. Elise, assertive and focused. And I realized I'd stepped into an alternate universe. The insurance question loomed until Martin walked in, dressed like he didn't belong in a hospital. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "Handling the insurance." He handed Elise a document. "Our international coverage applies to immediate family. I had it backdated to when you accepted the Paris assignment. Surgery's covered." Elise's hands trembled. "This covers everything?" Martin smiled. "Go take care of your dad." Mum leaned toward me and whispered, "He's a good boss." "He's something," I said, not meeting her eyes. Elise was already planning recovery schedules and physical therapy sessions, and I watched her in awe, not because she was perfect, but because she was trying. Dad woke as we entered. "My girls," he smiled. "All three of you together." Elise told him everything was arranged. He squeezed my hand. "Go back to Paris, we've got this." I nodded. "I'll stay through recovery, but after that..." "Okay." Weeks later, Elise welcomed me to the new office of what was now Granger & Granger Creative, formerly Dad's small business. "Wait until you see inside," she grinned. We toured the place. Dad working part-time, Mom running a small catering business out back, her stress baking now a profitable venture. Then Elise handed me a folder. "We want to open a New York branch. We want you to run it." I blinked. "What?" "As an equal partner," Dad added. I stared at them. Elise continued. "We talked to Martin. He suggested a merger. Your firm's New York office, our brand, shared leadership." I sat, overwhelmed. "You've been talking to Martin?" "For months," Elise said. "I'm not asking you to fix anything. I'm asking you to build something with me." "Two conditions," I said. "I run New York. We stay independent. No slipping back." She smiled. "Already in the draft." That night, Mom made a feast that could feed a small town. "To new beginnings," Dad said. "To healthy boundaries," Mom added. "To the sisters who made it possible," Claire said, raising her glass. As I looked around, I saw not the broken family I had once fled, but a new version. Flawed, yes, but trying. And trying is how real change begins. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs the reminder that walking away isn't giving up. It's giving space for growth. Subscribe for more real stories of healing, justice, and the quiet power of choosing yourself.